then do you get into the economic levers that you can use, whether it's taxation, subsidies, etc. And then how do you actually encourage innovation? And that's what we're looking now through research and innovation at DG Research and Innovation. What does it look like for new types of industries? Next slide, please. But what's also been very important now that we've had the Ukrainian invasion is how do we guide the European Commission or governments in this period where the most important thing is almost to go back to stranded assets. I mean, we've seen through the value chain disruption, both in terms of food, but also in terms of materials, and obviously in terms of oil and gas, that a lot of our decision-making is going counter to the European Green Deal and to what we've been saying in terms of our objectives on climate. We see it in this country in terms of going back to oil and gas. We see it across Europe in terms of looking at oil and gas as still being our savior in the short term because of the crunch that we've had from Russia. That means that we've actually been going to Africa. Europe has been going and pushing the African countries to continue to explore oil and gas exploration while they're trying to pretend that they're going to stay within the European Green Deal. And that's total hypocrisy. Rather than thinking through, okay, we have to triple our investments in renewables, we need to completely rethink this, we need to look at materials in terms of our dependency on materials, in particular now that we're if we do triple our investments, what does this mean in terms of access to rare earth? What does this mean in terms of our relationship with China, et cetera, et cetera? And so what we were asked to do is immediately come up with some solutions when you look at, for example, the food impacts, the gas price in Europe, and the metals and minerals price. What does this mean for Europe specifically, and what kind of solutions do we have? And what we were saying very clearly is think systemically. Don't go back to business as usual. Continue to pursue your European Green Deal. Work with industry to find solutions. Yes, gas is needed, in particular in some of those intensive industries where we know that gas is needed right now. But work with consumers, for example, and citizens to see if they can wean themselves off gas. Give special purchasing rights for insulation, for example, that could actually enable them. Give them monthly checks to enable them actually not to suffer from energy poverty and instead to have some assistance in starting to shift towards renewables, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide, please. And so these systemic solutions were part of what we also brought together, bringing in our principles of this compass that we've developed into a real-world example of when you start to have a crisis. What do? Do you go back, or do you continue to trudge forward? And that's hard because of the pressures that most of our politicians have. And remember, they're elected short-term, and therefore they're just thinking, how can I get elected again? Hence, I'm basically going to do what's easiest, and I'm not going to do what is going to be the most challenging. And we need to be there to say, well, wait, hold on. You can protect the vulnerable politicians against price spikes immediately, and you can do some of these. You can look at diversifying your supply chains and your import markets, because the more you get dependent on other countries, which could turn out to be another Russia, and could turn out to be another invasion or another conflict, we're back into the same situation. So we need foresight thinking. We need to get out of our usual thinking and really think long-term. Accelerate the substitution of costly imported products. Think through what are those possible areas across your